Hey guys, it's Carrie, and I'm back and I'm discussing part two from the book review from the book Goddesses in Everywoman by Dr. Jean Shinoda Bolen. Today I want to touch on the alchemical goddess, which from the book's perspective is Aphrodite. The book is heavily about goddesses and gods from the Greek mythology perspective. So, even though you might not identify with specific Greek mythology or with the gods and goddesses in that pantheon, in your culture, these archetypes or divinities or gods or goddesses might have a different name. Okay, so in some cultures, Aphrodite might show up as Venus, might show up as Oshun, might show up as Isis or Hathor, might show up as Freya or Parvati. So just really think on your cultural background and what archetypes or what divinities do you identify or do you recognize this Aphrodite archetype with? Okay, so let's do a little background on Aphrodite. And again, I'm kind of getting used to to making videos, so some of this might not be in any organized order. I'm freestyling and I'm hoping to do the best here. Okay, all right, so Aphrodite is the goddess of love and beauty, known as Venus to the Romans. The unfaithful wife of Hephaestus, the lame god of the forge, she had many affairs and many offspring from her numerous liaisons. Ares, the god of war, Hermes, the messenger of God, and Anchises, who fathered Aeneas, from whom the Romans claimed their descent, were some of the most noteworthy of her lovers, the alchemical goddess. So even when we think about the world that we live in, right, when you think about some people, whether they're in film or in your life, right, who would be the people that you might notice who embody this Aphrodite archetype, right? I can think about growing up, Elizabeth Taylor, right? She definitely embodies this lover, this Aphrodite, this goddess of love and beauty, right? I mean, I've watched some old school Elizabeth Taylor movies, and when I tell you that she was an it girl, right, in the movies. And then in her personal life, she's known to have had many husbands. Today, maybe some people might perceive J-Lo as an Aphrodite archetype as well. They might perceive who else is an Aphrodite type archetype. Somebody who they might look at as as a loving person or a lover, or is very beautiful, very creative. I guess maybe a Beyonce as well, or the Rihannas. I mean, there's numerous people that we could look at, but me personally, my classical go-to person would be an Elizabeth Taylor. Okay, so the Aphrodite archetype governs women's enjoyment of love and beauty, sexuality and sensuality. The realm of the lover exerts a powerful pull on many women as a force with a woman's personality. Aphrodite can be as demanding as Hera and Demeter, so those are the vulnerable goddesses who I discussed in part one, and these are the other two strong instinctual archetypes. Aphrodite impels women to fulfill both creative and procreative functions. Okay, so sometimes the lover archetype is not just about a sexual thing or a romantic thing with lovers, right? It's how you show up in embodying the authenticity of who you are, right? How you come to love and accept who you are and how you express it. So you can see an Aphrodite show up in your self-expression, right? In embodying and experience the wholeness of who you are. We can also see it in your creativity, and whether that's actually like giving birth, like the union of that comes through sexual intercourse, and whether that necessarily leads to a spiritual union or a relationship union, or the outcome of that union, which might be procreation, like having children. So you're going to see Aphrodite in different layers, right? And it's not only like the romantic aspect of her, but it's definitely how she embodies the experience of being herself fully. Sometimes Aphrodite in love does not necessarily, yes, she tends to fall in love, right? But sometimes it's not necessarily a falling in love for the sake of having a long-term relationship, right? It could be maybe how she falls in love with the moment, right? Like she, a part of her nature, that alchemical nature, is being able to pull someone in, right? So while the person might even experience her as being in love with them, she might not necessarily be in love with the person, but just be in love with the experience of them. Okay. And it doesn't necessarily mean that she chooses lovers either who bring out the best in her or who are good for her either. So, what connects her as the alchemical goddess? And I want to just read a little bit. So, let's read a little bit on what alchemy generally is. Okay. So, well, I'm going to read a little bit on what alchemy generally is. So while physical alchemy deals with altering and transforming the properties in the physical world, spiritual alchemy is connected with freeing your spirit self from your fears, limiting belief systems, and lack of self-acceptance. So alchemy is the art of transformation, inner liberation, and change. And one of the things that an alchemical goddess is able to do is transform situations, right? Bring out the best in situations and manipulate situations in a way that it can work in her favor. All right. So the lover is one of the most difficult archetypes to notice that you are experiencing, because sometimes it's such a natural, authentic process that you might not even be realizing it, because the very nature of it is seductive, it is spontaneous, it is magnetic, right? And it might take you a while sometimes to recognize when you yourself is under the spell of the lover, meaning, or to recognize when you maybe have fallen in love, right? Because of the spontaneity and the seductive nature when you are interacting with a lover archetype. So the lover is most commonly associated with sex, as I said earlier, but sex is the smallest part of the archetype. Okay, so so according to Jungian theory, right, the lover is most easily understood as our ability to give up a small part of ourselves to become part of something greater. The lover is our ability to merge with another person or a group of people. The lover let us dissolve part of our own ego to be a part of a greater purpose or force of society. If we do not have access to the lover, we are completely alone, completely with purpose, and without purpose, and life becomes an abstraction. All right. So in some ways, from the Jungian theory, in this aspect of the Jungian theory, it's talking about the concept of the lover being the force, right, that connects, right? It connects the goddess with herself and into herself, but it also connects the people around her, or connects her to the world around her, right? And it's this concept of love itself, right, being the force that connects us, right, that connects us to our shared humanity, and that helps to bring purpose into the world, right? So a lot of times you're going to see some of the archetypes in the goddesses intersect. So Hera and Demeter here are brought up from the book Goddesses in Everywoman as two other strong instinctual archetypes. And we see the lover in Hera, right? We see how she loves her husband, and how she she puts herself at his mercy, right? We also see it in Demeter. We see how she goes to war, right, for her daughter, and how in a lot of ways when she's not happy, right, when she feels disconnected from her, when she felt disconnected with her daughter, in some ways the world around her stopped, right? So the world around her needed her love. All right, so as you think about yourself, right, and you think about the lover in you, how does the lover archetype show up for you, right? How do you embody beauty? How do you embody grace? How are you coming into the sensual aspect of who you are? How are you experiencing your full being, and owning that, right? Owning your authenticity, right? Because you know, and also how do you deal with when things aren't really going the way you expected, or maybe when things in life aren't showing up the way you would have wanted them to go? How do you create joy for yourself? All right, so that's some on Aphrodite. So remember, and I'm asking these questions because that is, you know, the lover is really the catalyst for the alchemical process to happen. So the question about when things aren't going right in life, or going the way that right according to your perception, or going the way that you would expect them, how does the lover in you show up, right, to change the situation so that joy can be experienced, so that you're not attached to the outcome per se, but that you're still experiencing that you're still experiencing the authenticity of your being. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for listening. I hope this video resonates, and I will be touching on the third and last part of this book review, which would be the Virgin Goddesses next.